In LA, there's so many peptide advisors that are not medically trained. There's so many. It's really interesting. But what's happening is there's a lot of companies that are just sending out research-only peptides. And so research-only peptides are not put through the same rigor that an FDA-approved pharmacy, it's called a 503B pharmacy. They're FDA-approved to compound medications. And those, you can only order peptides if you're a medical provider.
Okay.
And you have a license to prescribe. And so the companies are just sending them out and they're not regulated. So it's like a mystery bottle.
Yeah, which is scary.
There can be mold in it. You don't even know what can be in it. Products are imported and there's no standard of purity.
Especially if you're going to be doing like self-injection.
Right.
Welcome into the Fit for Radio podcast. I'm your host, Drew Titeman, right here in the middle of it all at the Stafford Hills Club upstairs, where I just walked by the beautiful saltwater pool where people are already stretching it out this morning, saw some classes getting going, and, why not? It's the premier place for it, the kids club. My kids hang out there while I get a little workout in and maybe a little rest and relaxation. And don't forget, it is the premier place for indoor and outdoor tennis. Check them out today at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation. I got a great guest in here today who's going to educate me a little bit on some things that I've been wondering about for a bit. And you may have seen this stuff rolling around on the internet, but we'll get into a whole discussion about peptides, which are all the rage all of a sudden. And I've got a great person to talk about it. She is the owner and founder of Skin by Lovely in the studio today. Lovely Laban. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you're here too. Now, you've got an amazing place. I've only ever seen the one here in Lake Oswego, but you basically do everything when it comes to skincare and kind of helping you to age gracefully over there. How long have Skin by Lovely been a thing?
So we opened in 2009, so about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And initially it was just going to be a little small practice. My husband and I started. We were just thinking of a lifestyle business, and then we've expanded. We have 4 locations, soon to be 5. And it's interesting. We've really pivoted. I think at 16, I had this vision of starting this integrated health practice. And we just happened to start in aesthetics because that's what I was working in 25 years ago. And now we're expanding into all of these optimization treatments, really focusing on skin and cellular health.
Because you grew up, when we back it up a little bit, you grew up in a commune focused on organic living and natural wellness.
Absolutely.
What exactly does that look like?
So I think in the late 60s, early 70s, people were not trusting the government. Everyone was wanting to start their own thing. And so my father, during an LSD trip, decided to create this community based on love and organic living and trying to be as self-sustaining as possible. And so we had a huge organic garden. We had 350 acres north of Seattle, and trying to just be as self-sustaining of a community as we could be. We ate really clean. We had herbs for medicine. And that's the way that I grew up.
Because when people hear that, they think that you're all like living in a bus and that there's no power. I mean, so what was the overall, what did it look like out there?
So some people did not have power. Some people lived in yurts. We had a big lake on the property, so there were yurts surrounding the lake. Some people did have electricity. And there was just a beautiful foundation of love is the answer, the time is now, and we are one. So it was kind of religious, Judeo-Christian based.
And is that part of the reason why your name is Lovely?
Yes. So my father's name was Love, and I am the second to youngest of 12 children, 5 different mothers, and I got the name Lovely.
Wow. And does anyone else have Love in their name, or are you?
There's some middle names with Love, but I'm the only one who got that name.
I thought that was amazing because I knew of the business name of yours, Skin by Lovely,
right,
long before I knew that your name was actually Lovely. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Most people are confused by that. And it's actually funny. when I was in Lake Oswego the other day, I did a health assessment for someone and they were like, wait, there's an actual person named Lovely. So I do hear that all the time, which is great because we've built a brand and the brand is not just me. It's an incredible team.
Of course. And you do have a great team. And if you go in there, you'll find they're very kind. They offer you water, still water. Do you want sparkle water? It almost feels European in there. So you do a great job there. And when I heard your name was Lovely, I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad that I already have gotten through that. I was like, did you change your name to Lovely? Like, is that a stage name? But it's not. That's you.
It's not. That's my birth certificate. That's my name.
And it's pretty cool that, growing up in the situation that you did, because everybody in that situation, even though it's a little bit alternative, they're focused on wellness and, living a not necessarily cleaner as in like you can't have any fun or whatever, but, like kind of that organic lifestyle is kind of like a precursor to health and wellness and longevity.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's evident if you see the majority of like our parents right now in their 70s and they look great for their age and they're relatively healthy. There's very low comorbidities, very low obesity, diabetes rates amongst those that started the commune.
Mm-hmm. And I was actually talking to a guy who was going to come on this show in a couple of weeks, and he had done some internet sleuthing on me. And I try and take care of myself and my skin and do the healthy habits. And he was like, so I'm a little bit older than you. So like, you're like 30. And I was like, that's very kind of you, but I'm 45. And so like, but he grew up in another country where there are, a lot more like war-torn places and places where you're dealing with all this other stuff and you don't necessarily have organic foods and all this stuff. So, and you don't have Skin by Lovely. So there's that. Now, what got you into all this? Because you're well-educated in this whole area. You've been doing it for 25 years. What made you kind of make the leap?
Into aesthetics or into peptides? Aesthetics?
Aesthetics first.
So it was really actually interesting. I was working in the brain trauma ICU at UCLA, and I had just been accepted into the master's program there. And I always loved the study of aging and gerontology. And so my master's is in gerontology. And so I had just started in the ICU there. And my mom, who's an RN, just took a class on how to inject Botox.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I said, maybe I should work in a field that's a little lighter while I'm in grad school. And so I got hired at what was at the time the busiest Botox practice in the country in Beverly Hills.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I just
bet.
fell in love with it. I did. I think that I knew my purpose young, and my purpose is really to make people feel better. And so that comes in many different avenues and occupations. But I love nurturing and being of service to my clients. And I just realized that when you relax depressor muscles in the face, it creates a neurofeedback response to the brain that actually elevates your mood. When you look in the mirror and you don't see a scowl, a frown, you feel happier.
That is
There's
true.
Science behind it.
Yeah, when I wake up and I look like a raisin, I don't think I'm that happy. So I agree with you completely. And I know a lot of people who that has helped them just to find joy and to, and as we age and we're not necessarily quote unquote old, you feel young.
Right.
So you might as well look young if it's going to be safe for you. And I think that Botox is a good example because when Botox first came out, there was a lot of question marks about should we, shouldn't we? What is this? What is that? And I think peptides have kind of taken that place now of people are interested and would like to know more, but there's just so much like flowing at this point that I feel like I could normally like work my way through a thought process on something, but I'll go be scrolling on my phone and some randoms talking about peptides and they're using all these little names and numbers and dashes. And I'm like, I think I need to go to school just to know what I'm talking about.
When we first talked about it, and actually it was Mandy that brought it up and she was like, we really need to do this. And I've always been interested in it, but I didn't know much about it. And so I signed up for a course and tried to master as much as I could, as much as is out there. There's not that many educational programs for peptides.
Kind of on the cutting edge.
It's on the cutting edge. And, Skin by Lovely has always been even in aesthetics, we've always looked at what are regenerative things, what are things that we can do that are kind of outside the box. And so I think this was one of them where it was like, okay, here we are. We have all these tools to make the skin look better, but what about actually looking deeper at a cellular level to make people feel better? Because our skin is a manifestation of what is internally going on within our bodies.
So if you start working from within, you can kind of work inward to outward, which is going to be a lot more productive than just necessarily painting an old barn is what I'm thinking of.
It's so true. I mean, it's absolutely true. And the thing is, like, I could take away wrinkles and do all these things, but that's just like icing on the cake. Like if you really want good, clean youthfulness, you really have to work at all levels.
Yeah. And obviously there's the other things that you just have to do in general, which is health and exercise and that. But that really only goes so far, especially with some people who fight a more uphill battle with genetics or maybe just discipline in general. Now, when it comes to a peptide, what would be like the simple definition of what we're even talking about?
So I like to break it down. Peptides are signaling molecules. So think of them like a text message that goes to the cells, and it's very specific. So every different organ and cell needs a different message going to it in order to tell it to do something.
Okay.
Right? And so peptides are, if you break it down, they're short chain amino acids, which are like not quite proteins, but almost proteins, and our bodies are made up of protein.
Okay.
And so basically they release little signals to tell your cells to do something. And there's thousands of them throughout our body, and they all have different functions. So that's why peptides are so confusing, because there's certain ones that are kind of more mainstream that people know about, but there's so many more. There's thousands.
Yeah. And that's where I get a little confused.
Right, exactly. And I think what we try to do is simplify it in practice to where, what are your objectives? And then we can go from there.
Okay. So you can, if somebody's like, I want this to happen or that to happen, there's kind of a lane that you can push them to.
Right. What are your major concerns? And then we can go from there. We can look at your lab work, which is super important because you don't want to start peptides if something is internally going on. So we look at your lab work, and then we kind of talk to you, and it's super personalized. It should be personalized for everyone. And that's what's scary about people searching online and ordering their own, is that you just don't know what your body needs and what you're a candidate for.
And that's the tough part. Now, when you say blood work, are you looking at family history stuff? Are you looking at blood pressure, cholesterol? Like what kind of stuff are you looking at?
We get like a basic metabolic panel that shows your kidney function, your liver function, how you're processing sugar, which is a number called your hemoglobin A1C.
Yeah.
And then we look at your overall, how you're processing sugar, and then your thyroid. So those are the basic panels that we need to see to make sure that there's no liver or kidney dysfunctions going on, that you don't have super low blood sugar, because we don't want to put you on necessarily a GLP-1 if you're already hypoglycemic or have blood sugar regulation issues. And then also with your thyroid, we have to be careful because GLP-1s are contraindicated if there's any kind of thyroid disorders.
So when you say GLP-1s, and how does that compare to a peptide? Because a lot of these internet warriors are being like, why take a GLP-1 when you can take a peptide? And so
GLP-1s are peptides.
Okay.
So that was the first kind of introduction into peptide medicine, was the discovery of GLP-1 medications.
Okay.
And insulin is a peptide also. So insulin is what diabetics take to help regulate their blood sugar. So GLP-1s are peptide medications. And I think that was the initial spark but that's why Big Pharma is so interested right now in peptides, because these drugs have taken off. But the thing is, they're naturally occurring peptides, and so they're actually pretty easy to reproduce in a lab. So synthetically, they can reproduce these very easily. That's why all the compounding pharmacies are able to produce peptides so easily.
Yeah.
So GLP was the first, GLP-1. But then if someone isn't necessarily working on body composition or recomposition, if that's not their major interest, there's other peptides that are designed for metabolic boosts, but also for inflammation and muscle recovery. And then the other group that I think have known about peptides forever are bodybuilders.
Yeah. And
Those are
I'm
the
seeing
guys,
a lot of that.
Exactly. Those are the guys that have been injecting the growth hormone, peptides to keep bulk, to bulk up muscle or muscle synthesis and to reduce belly fat.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that are, I feel like, the most used, but probably the least studied. There's a lot of anecdotal information, but not a lot of human trials.
Because I've got a lot of friends, and being 45 now, I've got a bunch of buddies where, like, I see him, a picture of him online, and I'm like, well, he doesn't look the way he used to. And then I find out that friend is on testosterone.
Yes.
Or that friend, or on the other side, people who've lost a bunch of weight, they're on a GLP-1.
Right.
What is it? So if they're all kind of like, not necessarily the testosterone, but they're kind of in a similar ride, why wouldn't you ditch the GLP-1 standard and go to the peptide if it can attack?
They don't all work the same.
Okay.
So I think it is very specific to the individual. I think a lot of people like ipamorelin, tesamorelin, semarelin, CJC, all those ones are growth hormone inducing peptides.
Okay.
And so growth hormone is very important for body composition, muscle synthesis, and also helps in skin and wound healing. And we lose that ability to produce it. We don't produce it as much as we age. And so that's the one that like the bodybuilders love, but it's designed more for belly fat and visceral fat. And so if that's the major situation or area that the patient is coming in for, then that's probably the one they want to use. Most people want the overall anti-inflammatory effects of the GLP-1 medications like retatrutide.
So with the GLP-1s, what I've noticed as an outsider looking in, so take it with a grain of salt, that sometimes it's been described to me as people who take the GLP-1s and don't do it with working out on a regular basis can get like that little boy body.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Where it's like, it's kind of, you're skinny.
Yes.
But it's all kind of gone.
Right. Because they're losing muscle.
Yeah. And so what do you suggest for that person they've lost the weight, they're now in a much better situation, but now they look maybe more like their 10-year-old son than they do what they were looking for? What would you suggest to that person?
I think a huge part of that is diet and strength training. I think that's the most important. And so when we talk to patients, it's really important that patients are committed to the lifestyle. Your lifestyle has to change because ideally, our muscle is what gives us our increased metabolic rate. And as women too, it's super important for our bone, our bone health and our cardiac function and everything. You need to have good muscle tone and strength for overall lifespan.
And that it's not a silver bullet.
It's not a silver bullet. And enough protein. A lot of women are not eating enough protein. And so even, men who lose weight, it's equally as important. You need to be lifting weights along with it.
Yeah. And I always say that, because I've taken here at the Stafford Hills Club, I've taken a bunch of the classes that are majority ladies, and they humble me every time, whether it's Pilates or a yoga thing or whatever. It's always humbling. But I also have had some experts on here that I agree with that say all women should strength train.
Yes, absolutely.
And whatever that looks like to you, that doesn't mean you got to be deadlifting or doing any of these silly lifts, but do things to enhance your muscles, and that will help your overall health.
Absolutely. And the other thing is HRT with women is really important, perimenopause, menopausal. And I think, all of those studies were kind of debunked. And now there's this whole movement of women being hormonally optimized and muscle and strength training. And I think the movement and the messaging is out there, which I love. And it's amazing talking to women in our practice now who are really taking part in that. I was just yesterday with clients, and we were talking about, a couple of us do EMS.
And so what is EMS?
EMS is electromuscle stimulation.
Okay, so you put on like little electrodes?
You put electrodes. I have a suit that I actually purchased that I wear at home, and it has little pads all over my muscle, and my arms have never looked better because of this suit, but it stimulates your muscle as you're working out. And so it's equal to 4 hours of weightlifting.
That's impressive. So I actually did this. There's in town.
Body 20.
I went to Body 20.
Yes.
And I put on the full suit and I did a workout, and it was crazy. Like, just doing small curls, or, I do a 1,000 push-ups a day. They put this suit on me, and like I'm at 15 going, yes. Like it felt like I had 3 kids sitting on my back.
It is wild. I love it. I feel like for me personally and many of my patients, I want to bring that into Skin by Lovely somehow because I just feel like it's 20 minutes for all of us that are so busy, that are busy parents, busy with our careers. It's the best workout. I love it.
It really is, because when I was at the Body 20 to try it, beforehand, we went through all my stats and stuff, and they kind of tell you stuff you need to work on. And it was a bit ago, so I was in like optimum shape for me. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, there's not a ton to work on, but let's go back here. And when we got done, I was fine. But then the next day I was sore like I hadn't been sore in years from working out.
Right.
And I was there for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think with your electrodes and everything, it's a cool idea, and it's kind of a cutting edge thing.
It's cutting edge. Absolutely. But then on the side of that, so those are the patients when you experience that muscle soreness, those are the patients that come in for like the Wolverine stack, which is BPC 157 and TB 500, that combination, because that's amazing for inflammation and muscle healing and any kind of repair. Those are the 2 that you want to get on.
And that's the Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
I like the name. Is that the name at Skin by Lovely?
It's not the Skin by Lovely name, but it's a great name.
I was going to say.
But it's not as attractive to women.
I know. I think the guys kind of leak towards the Wolverine, but I'm sure there's some ladies who want to be Wolverine too.
Exactly.
That's amazing. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by Motorsport Hillsboro. I say it all the time, but I cannot stress it enough. If you want a great deal on a motorcycle, whether that's a street bike or a dirt bike, or you want a side-by-side, they've got everything you could possibly imagine. Also, those e-assist mountain bikes are so much fun. If you haven't been on one, you can dial it up, you can turn it down. The gas e-assist mountain bikes right now, some of them up to $3,000 off MSRP. You can get in where you fit in, and you can go on trails like you never have before. And they work so hard to get you the easiest and best financing. So before you run out of sunshine, it's time to get the job done. Or maybe you run a farm, or you like to go hunting. Those side-by-sides, those HVACs are so awesome. In order to have yourself nice and cool or warm once it gets to those winter months, check them out today at motorsporthillsboro.com. Also, brought to you by Axiom Plumbing, Sewer, and Septic. These guys are next level. Anything water and waste, they'll take care of it. Big job, small job. And all you got to do is tell them that Drew sent you, and 10% off your first service. Or do you need a new water heater ahead of those months where you like a nice warm shower? $500 off if you say, I sent you. These are my people. Bruce, born and raised in the area, not private equity, doing it the right way and doing it for you. So hit him up today, AxiomPDX.com. And finally, of course, the Stafford Hills Club. I talk about them all the time, and I'm not playing. These are the best people around. They've got the best facility around, voted best health and wellness facility in the Portland area. And High Rocks, if you haven't checked it out, the X Studio is on a next level. If you liked CrossFit, you're going to love Studio X and High Rocks. They get the job done with 4 different variations for you, as you can check it out today at StaffordHills.com and tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation. So peptides have been, living inside of us and have been around forever. Why is it now? Is it technology? Is it information? Why is this happening now?
I think, as with everything, celebrities start the trends. And I think it was a few years ago, Kylie Jenner and Hailey Bieber were getting an NAD infusion.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll get it going.
That'll get it going. And so that stimulated this thought of, what is NAD? Well, NAD helps your mitochondria have energy. And then this whole deep dive into cellular medicine and why all of these peptides and these nutrients are super important for our cells and what ATP does in our body. And also, I think bodybuilders have brought it more mainstream. And, I've heard other podcasts where there's celebrities on and they're talking about their peptide stacks that they're on. And so celebrities always seem to normalize things for us. But I know that Big Pharma is deeply involved in how can I make money? How can they make money on these things?
They're dying to do that.
They're dying to do it. Yeah.
So when you say Kylie Jenner, I'm not sure how old she is at this point, and it kind of raises the question, and I'm sure every Kardashian does everything before you need to.
Yes.
But when it comes to that age group, where do you see that? Because I feel like there is a point where your body's still doing so much of the things for you that is there an issue about starting these things too young when you're still, like, say you're same thing with like Botox, when you still have full elasticity of your forehead, but then you start Botox because you're overly obsessed with it. Is there a time where you feel like there's an age thing, or do you think that's completely patient to patient?
I think it's patient to patient, because I think if you're talking about body recomposition and someone is obese or pre-diabetic, it's probably okay for them to start a GLP-1.
Of course.
Because of their own lifespan, right? And reducing inflammation in their body. I think short-term injuries for younger people are okay. If someone has, like, BPC 157 it's in a phase 2 clinical study right now, one of the only ones on humans. Many of their studies are on animals. And it's regarding hamstring injuries, acute hamstring injuries. And that's one that we recommend for patients if there's an acute injury.
And helps with the rate of recovery?
Exactly. Recovery, body decreases inflammation in tissue, helps the area heal faster.
Which is impressive.
Exactly. So if someone's younger and, being advised by a functional medicine practitioner or someone who's experienced with peptides, it would be okay for them to do that short term. For injury and recovery.
Yeah, because I don't think that age, it's just like, this is the age, especially when you're talking about diabetes and obesity.
Yes.
I have a buddy who I hadn't seen in probably 2 years, and I just saw him last weekend. I'm like, did you lose like 100 pounds? And he's all, yeah, and he's diabetic and he's on a GLP-1. And I'm like, you look great. And he's moving around better and everything. And nobody has a right to tell him he shouldn't do that because his health was in peril.
Right.
And I feel like you're in much more danger of having a heart attack or having other health complications than you are, by maybe treating it and trying to stay out in front of it.
Absolutely. And I think some of the peptides too, it's unnecessary for young people to start. It's not like it's going to be preventative in the future. I think for someone in their 40s, I'm 47. I think in your 40s, starting if you already have inflammatory markers going on, if you have acute injury, if you're finding that you just have much lower energy, cognitive brain fog, issues like that. There's peptides for literally everything right now. I was just reading about C-Max and Selank, which are 2 peptides. Have you ever heard of those?
No, what do those do?
So these actually do have some human studies in them, actually Russian studies. And they're FDA, or they're approved in many European countries.
Okay.
And they're neuropeptides. So neuroprotective, so those with cognitive decline, anxiety, sleep disturbances, that's what these are for, which is amazing. And I can't wait to trial some of those on myself.
So we're talking not just physical stuff here and, working from the inside out. You're talking that these things can help with your mental aspect of health.
Absolutely. There's so many peptides. The neuropeptides I find particularly fascinating. We don't have them yet. We don't have them within Skin by Lovely, but I just think it's something to really keep our eye on, because inflammation causes high senescent cell activity. Senescent cells are zombie cells. Those are cells that have replicated in an abnormal way, and abnormal cells cause cancer and cause inflammation. And so a lot of these are senolytic therapies, which actually kill the senescent cells so that their healthy cells are able to replicate normally.
So it feels like it's like a miracle, because
absolutely,
when you talk about mental health or anxieties and things that everybody deals with on some sort of scale, and most of us are, it's hidden behind a curtain somewhere. But Big Pharma's answer to that is really kind of like a dangerous list of side effects and things that come with it. Automatic. They're on the bottle.
Yeah.
They tell you in the pharmacy. And so if you could attack some of that stuff on more of a cellular level or an internal level, I feel like it could be, I said silver bullet before, kind of a silver bullet for your mental aspect.
I think that is the future of medicine in general. I think the healthcare system has failed us time and time again, which with patchwork medicine and many, there's so many great physicians out there, but that Western medicine mentality just isn't healing us. It's not keeping us well. I love the functional integrated medicine, and it's kind of the pioneers, of new medicines and new therapies and all these off-label uses of things, but it's healing people. It's making people feel better. And so that's where I think our world is going. Even in aesthetics, there's so many regenerative treatments now being created that stimulate your own collagen to produce versus a dermal filler made of hyaluronic acid, which definitely has its place in the face.
And has worked for many years
and is safe. But sometimes people want something that's just going to stimulate their own natural collagen. And that's so beautiful too. So I love where we're headed, the direction that we're headed in aesthetics and all of cellular medicine. I think it's incredible. And I think as time goes on, there'll be more and more studies. And, you saw that FDA advisory panel with the peptides that are going to probably be moved to okay to compound. A few of them that I've talked about today. And that's so exciting for this whole field too.
It is. And, I wonder, as we move forward, big pharma they either get on board or they block. And so I'm hoping they're leaning towards get on board because it could replace a lot of the medicines that are on the shelf now over time. And, with a family like my family's always a little skeptical of, well, what's the long term of this and what's the long term of that? But when you discuss it in the manner of using the things that are already inside of you and almost just like giving them a nudge, that's what I kind of think of, or like pulling it along or like, hey, over here, buddy. It feels safer to me. Now, I also trust in the system and you guys and you've done your work and your due diligence, but I just feel like it has a better feel overall than some of the other things. But that being said, there are a lot of what I call the internet cowboys who are, like I saw a guy the other day, he's holding 5 big packages. He's like, we're sending out peptides like crazy. And he's just like a random realtor.
Right.
And I know he is not. I mean, he's like probably read a couple articles and maybe he took like an online class. But to me, I'd feel much more comfortable in a setting like you provide. What are the pitfalls of just going off and dealing with something that's not necessarily guaranteed? So
a couple things with that. In LA, there's so many peptide advisors that are not medically trained. There's so many. It's really interesting. But what's happening is there's a lot of companies that are just sending out research-only peptides. And so research-only peptides are not put through the same rigor that an FDA-approved pharmacy, it's called a 503B pharmacy. They're FDA-approved to compound medications. And those, you can only order peptides if you're a medical provider.
Okay.
And you have a license to prescribe. And so the other companies are just sending them out and they're not regulated. So it's like a mystery bottle.
Yeah, which is scary.
There can be mold in it. You don't even know what can be in it. Products are imported and there's no standard of purity.
Especially if you're going to be doing like self-injection.
Right.
I already have a tough enough time with needles. I'm basically the guy you hand the little stress ball to and tell me to calm down. So I have a tough enough time. I had to go get my blood drawn a couple days ago. You can see my left arm's just beat up.
Oh God, yeah.
I hated every second of it. But if I'm going to do it or someone's going to do it to me, I want to know that I'm going to be good.
Yes.
Right.
So for us, hands down, it's all those FDA pharmacies. We would never even consider ordering from a different kind of place, but that's where the Wild West comes in, right? When there's opportunity, I feel like the peptide dealers are like the crypto guys.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? They're like the new crypto guys. And so they're just basically telling people a stack that they should do in their YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And there's no follow-up. There's no lab work. There's no what are the contraindications? Who should not be taking peptides?
And isn't it going to get to a point where they get blocked from doing certain things like that? I mean, it just feels like if I was peddling medicines online without a license and I don't know who the regulatory body is over peptides, but it just seems because they're not held accountable.
I think if they're not medical people,
it's on you for ordering
exactly.
it?
Well, it's like there's no license to take away.
I guess that's true.
Right? They just shut down the company and then they pop open another company. But this is how it's always been. People order medications off Amazon all the time.
Yeah.
Too, and who knows what they are.
And it's the same thing with Botox and where I live, there's I guess you'd like the bootleg Botoxers and
counterfeit
stuff.
Botox.
People
absolutely.
who just show up at the house at a discount. But I fear that you're going to end up with like a Frankenstein forehead or, some weird devil eyebrows out of the deal. And
there's been many situations where that's happened. People making Botox in their bathtub.
Yeah.
And injecting it. So many situations like that.
And it goes back to, years ago where they do butt injections and the person got busted putting concrete in someone's
motor
cheeks.
Oil.
And motor oil. Yeah. So be careful what you ask for. And sometimes, it's not just about that bro who
cheaper
showed
is
you.
not better.
Yeah. And you saw somebody's before and after abs, but you also don't know what went into all of that.
Right.
It's like the increased workouts and cutting food out of your diet, and people want a silver bullet so bad that they're like, okay, and that's how we end up with GLP-1s with the boy body or whatever. It's like you have to do the work. You can get a little pick-me-up and a help, but you got to do the work.
I think everything, I'm always someone of moderation. I think everything in moderation. I think people can over-optimize too. And I think I'm such a believer the blue zones and and true longevity and health span medicine, but it's so much lifestyle too, and it's community, and it's having your wine, and it's it's that space of belonging that's equally as important to your diet and your exercise.
And that's what was great because you and I talked on the phone ahead of this interview, and you were talking about blue zones, and you had a passion about helping people to live longer, and said when you were a kid that was all you really wanted to do was to kind of help with that whole help people to live forever. And I'm a 45-year-old guy with an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old little girl. So I have to live for another 100 years myself. So I'm all about it. But that's what I love about you is that it's not just a business for you; it's also a passion, and that you seem like you genuinely find joy in helping these people, not only to be happy, but to find longevity.
Well, I'm living it too. So I have a 10 and 13-year-old. I have a 75-year-old mother. My father passed, but we're in this sandwich generation where we're raising young kids and we have older parents. And so I think my 10-year-old and I are we're going to live to over 100. We just have this thing we always say. And I think it's super important because we see baby boomer generation maybe not ideally aging the way that we would like because we realize how important mobility is, stretching, flexibility, all these things that will keep us healthy, building muscle. And I think of my mom's generation that was just be skinny.
Yeah.
The muscle doesn't matter. Just be skinny.
Fit in those jeans.
Exactly. And that was it. And you really see the decline as they're older because they didn't prioritize muscle and decreasing inflammation in the body. And then we see these young kids and we're like, I want to be around and I want to be able to get off the floor and pick up my grandkids. And so I think that's what's driving this whole movement also.
Well, and, the whole art of back in the day, let's just be skinny it's not good for your health. It's not going to make you last longer here. And it's also not going to let you do those things like pick the kids up off the ground. It's actually counterproductive. So what's nice about this whole peptide idea is you could have more optimal health, but with that, it's making you stronger. It's making you more clear-headed, depending on the stack, whether it's the Wolverine or something else. I just think that if, with time, and you think how fast this has gone. I feel like if you and I sat down in a year from now, you'd have a whole nother slew of things that are just we're kind of in like this hyper-information age on peptides.
Absolutely, we are.
Where 2 years ago, if you were like, Drew, what's a peptide? I'd be like, I'm not sure. But here we are,
right.
And I'm still a rookie on it. But it's something that is evolving on such a grand scale at this point.
It is. And I think there's more and more peptides and more like not just for muscle, right? Because like I said, those are the most popular ones, the ones for recovery and the ones for reducing inflammation and gut health and, GHKCU copper, which is amazing for your hair and your skin.
Look at that.
And so there's all these peptides, but there's, like I said, there's neuropeptides coming out. So our brains, right, really control everything. So we have to keep our brains well. And so a year from now, we're going to have a lot more information. I think we're going to have more human clinical trials to where we really have a lot of evidence behind everything that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just going to move on from there. When it comes to the big pharma things, though, I don't think there's a lot of money in it. So I don't know if a lot of these will be FDA approved. I just don't know if they'll be FDA approved. FDA approved happens when big pharma pushes it through.
Oh, yeah. And it's almost impossible to do it without that. I mean, If you watch the statistics, it's the uphill battle if you create a medicine, you almost have to sell it to them because they're the only ones who have the money to get it onto the market.
Absolutely. And so these are fairly easy to replicate in a lab. And that's why I think there hasn't been the push for the trials and the approval.
So they've been able to drive the costs down enough to where it's not necessarily worth it for them.
Yes, that's what I believe.
So that's interesting. Now, for people who want to get into this, and I know that you run a nice, safe place. Now, you have 4 locations of Skin by Lovely. You've got one in Lake Oswego, Oregon here. Where are the other ones?
We have one in Camas, Washington.
Okay.
And then we have in downtown Portland, in Slabtown, and in Santa Monica.
Awesome. And for people who don't know, you lived here for a long time as well. You live down there now. Mm-hmm. I always tell my daughter, I'm like, you don't go chase that sunshine on me. But it's hard. It's beautiful down there. But you've spent a lot of time here, and that's probably why you have multiple offices here. But if you're in the Portland area, you've got in Vancouver area, you've got a lot of options there.
Right.
If somebody wants to get into this and is just kind of like me where they're curious and maybe they've got some boxes they'd like to check, what would you suggest they do if you were going to have them come see you?
So I would say if you have recent labs within the last 6 months, the ones that I kind of went through, just a basic metabolic panel and then thyroid health, liver, kidneys, and your blood sugar numbers, bring them in and book a peptide consultation. They're very thorough. It's about an hour long, and our nurses or NPs will go through and educate you on all of the different options that we have in clinic, and super personalized, specialized for you, whatever your ideal kind of outcome is.
Nice. And a side note, this is a question just for me. Will they always be injectable, or do you think that they're going to get to the point where somebody can like take a pill or a cream or something?
So
the needle guy asking over
most
here.
Of the pills don't work because they're broken down by the stomach acid right now. There are nasal sprays for certain things, and I'm reading about a couple that have like a 85% absorption, which is great.
Yeah.
So I think BPC may be a nasal spray sometime soon, and so there are other ways that are in the works right now, but currently they're injectable.
So when you guys do it, they're all in. Do they all do them in office then?
So we teach you how to inject them yourself.
Okay.
And then we just kind of follow up with you. We show you in office. You'll actually do your own first injection in office, and we make sure you know exactly your dose. And then we keep following up with you, and we usually do multiple follow-ups.
See, that's impressive because even with GLP-1s, they become so mainstream that they just send it to your house and they're like, give yourself a jab and then remember to do it next Monday. And to me, that's a little scary. I would rather have a professional be like, okay, Drew, we know you're a wimp. We're going to do it this way. You're going to be okay. And then I could, maneuver it that way.
And there's sliding scale too. So we start out very low and conservative. And so the follow-ups are really important so that we can adjust your dose.
So does blood pressure come into any of this? Does this matter on the level of, because like some of the same type of places that sell those JLP-1s, they won't give somebody like an erectile dysfunction pill without the proper blood pressure.
Not with most of the peptides. The big contraindications are active cancers or cancers within the last 5 years.
Okay.
Because a lot of the peptides stimulate angiogenesis, which is cell turnover and cell renewal. And so at certain peptides, there's a possibility, even though it's not proven, that they could accelerate tumor growth.
Okay.
And so cancers within the last 5 years is an absolute contraindication. Pregnancy and breastfeeding,
Of
and
course.
then liver or kidney dysfunctions.
Yeah, if you're pregnant, you don't need the kid being born on the Wolverine stack.
Exactly.
You take it to, you're like, man, your kid is super good at soccer. I totally get it. Well, Lovely, it has been so nice to sit down with you. And your website, skinbylovely.com?
Yes, correct.
Go check it out for yourself. Everything to do with your skin and your body inside and out. It's a great place. It's a homey place. And like I said, it's all over the Portland and Southwest Washington area. And if you're in California, hit them up as well. They'll take care of you. And I hope to talk to you again soon and hear about everything you learn with peptides.
Thank you, Drew. Wonderful being here.
Cheers.